Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our last or our third general meeting of the quarter. But it'll be my last time hosting general meetings, and I'm very sad to do that. But we will be passing it off to the new team afterwards. So I do want to say quickly, thank you to everyone who have been with us since the beginning, or like no matter what time you join us. It's really been great to spend time with all of you and be able to work with my team, Helia, Paris, Helia, Harris, James, Sarah, Patty, Tiffany, Brandon, Nancy, and Arpitha as well. And it's really been great to not only be able to grow with you, but also like grow with you through Saikai. So thank you. And I'll continue my speech during inductions. So please do come to inductions. And if you haven't already, I'm going to drop the sign-in sheet one last time. So please do. And we'll go ahead and get started. So as for our upcoming events, these will all be explained in the next slide, so do stay tuned. And first things first, I do want to say, especially because midterms, we all know midterms are hitting, all sorts of deadlines and assignments and whatnot are here. It's a good time for you to implement self-care if you haven't already. So if you do have any sort of self-care activities that you practice, or if there's anything that you would like to practice and you want to share it with us, I encourage you to do so because you'll also get an activity point for it. So please do join the Discord if you haven't already. It is linked in the slides and we'll share it out in the email as well. And it has already been shared, but please do like share a self-care activity that you do. And you'll also get an extra activity point if you send us a picture as well. And next up, we have our study session.
Hi everyone. So we'll be having our study session tomorrow. It'll be hybrid, so you can join us in Rivera Library or you can join us in Discord so you can get your activity points and also study with us. So feel free to join us tomorrow at any time.
Get homework done with Saikai, you know. Anyways, I'll move on to our fundraiser. So that is happening tomorrow at Boba Tea House from 5 to 9 p.m. We do hope you support us, and please do remember to send in your receipt so that you can get to activity points. Also bring your friends. And next up, if I can have Sarah talk about the Inductions Award nominations.
All right.
Gotta say it for Zoom, you know. Just if you don't already know, hybrid technology is fun to deal with.
Hi, everybody. I'm the person planning inductions this year. So please make sure to check your email and fill out the award nomination to recognize official and prospective members who you think have been an amazing part of Saikai this year. So yeah, we've got all the awards listed there and their descriptions are going to be in the form. So please just fill it out. Super easy. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And then I'll go on to the next slide, which is about running for historian. So I know there are some people that are interested, and I better see y'all submit something. This application does close on this Saturday at 5 p.m. So if you do have any remaining questions, feel free to email us, send me a message on Discord, whatnot, but do apply. And if we can have Brandon talk about RSIC next.
Hello, everyone. So for those of you who are interested in research, this is a great opportunity for you all. So all the abstracts have been submitted and RSIC will be happening on May 14th, Saturday from 12 to 4:30 p.m. It's a great way for you to witness undergraduate psychology research, as well as participating in panels with psychology faculty and grad students, and be closing out with a keynote speaker. So yeah, if you're interested, definitely RSVP, and we hope to see you there.
Yes, thank you, Brendan. And remember, attending RSIC also grants you an activity point. So please do come to RSIC, and it is free. And this should be the last announcement, but we are collaborating with Gamma Beta Phi. They are another honor society on campus, so we'll be collaborating to make stress toys. And this will be happening next week in Hub 269. next Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. So we do hope to see you there. And I believe that is it. So if anyone has any questions about any of the announcements, feel free to drop a question in the chat or email us as usual. Otherwise, we will go ahead and get started with our panel. And I'll pass it off to my Vice President, Halia.
Hello, everyone. Very excited to be moderating my last panel, but this has nothing to do with me. Instead, this will have everything to do with psychology and with applications in medicine with our two wonderful guest speakers, Dr. Amy Elliott and Peter Hung. And so we will get started with some introductions from them. So please see your slide. Feel free to introduce yourself for a few minutes and tell everyone what you're up to and what your interests are. First up, we have Dr. Amy Elliott.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for inviting me here. I'm excited to talk with you guys. So I'm a child clinical psychologist. I got my doctorate at Western Michigan University. Before that, had gotten a master's degree at North Dakota State University and am a product of the University of Minnesota. So public schools the whole way. And I'm currently the Chief Clinical Research Officer at Avera Health, which is a large rural integrated health system located in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm also a professor in the Department of Pediatrics at the School of Medicine, so really have had very much a hybrid type approach, being in a School of Medicine, in a health system, and doing research, some psych, some kind of, again, more of a hybrid of everything. So I look forward to answering some of your questions.
Wonderful, thank you. And next up, we have Peter Hung.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be one of the guest speakers today. I'm currently a medical social worker in the Kaiser Special Needs Program. It's members with dual coverage of Medicare and also Medi-Cal. We do annual assessments and follow-ups to make sure that our members are receiving the care, supplies, and also the health guidance they need to manage their chronic conditions. Although most of my experience is in medical social work, I first started as a mental health worker in a psychiatric facility at undergrad. And I was fortunate enough to also attend grad school at Berkeley and complete my studies in 2014 with a degree in Master's Social Welfare. Following grad school, I worked as a mental health treatment coordinator at the Department of Veterans Affairs, providing psychotherapy and case management to veterans with mental health and substance abuse disorder. In addition to providing psychotherapy to veterans, I also made referrals to an array of supportive programs for veterans, like compensated work therapy, homeless veteran rehabilitation program, and residential substance treatment programs. I then transitioned to Kaiser as a medical social worker with experience working in the emergency room, ICU, and also outpatient clinics. Thank you guys for having me. I look forward to answering some of your questions.
Okay, thank you both so much for introducing yourselves. I know that we probably have a lot of questions from our members. So general members, if you're in person or if you're online, feel free to ask any. But I think a wonderful first question to start with would be, how did you get involved in your specific field? What made you choose this aspect of working with psychology and medicine?
I can certainly jump in first. You'd like to think that all of your career decisions are this well thought out plan that you had put into play very early on in your education, and that you just followed that path. And that was not the case for me. I, in fact, I got my undergraduate degree, worked for a year as a youth counselor was actually my title, and it was at a state psychiatric facility. And then thought, okay, I need a little bit more education. I'd like to advance a little bit beyond, I think, what I could do with a bachelor's degree. So I got a master's degree, because who would want to go to school for so long as to get a doctorate? And so got a master's degree, and then decided finally, okay, I might as well go on and get the doctorate, and then ended up doing fellowships and all of those things. And each path of those took me a little bit closer to where I'm at now, which is, again, I manage the non-oncology clinical trial portfolio for a large health system. And I also have my own line of research and have been an NIH funded investigator for the past 20 years. And so I find it extremely rewarding doing a lot of population health research, doing clinical trials. COVID has turned me much more infectious disease than I ever thought would be possible. And it's my mornings are very different than my afternoons. And I couldn't have orchestrated it any better, but it was not planned. Every decision point kind of just, I ended up getting closer and closer to what I do now. But I also like to think that, that little journey isn't done, and who knows what the next bend will look like.
Yes, and so how I got into my current field, actually, I would say that volunteering in high school at St. Joseph's Hospital, I was a volunteer that helped push people discharging. I remember very distinctly that there was a guy I pushed in a wheelchair. He was being discharged. He had double amputation below the knee. And I thought to myself, wow, this is very unfortunate because he was a young guy. And so I thought he would be in a sad mood. But in talking to him, his outlook was actually very positive. And so at that point in my life, I thought, wow, perspective and outlook has profound effect on someone's mental health. And so from that point on, I was interested in mental health. And then in college, I also remembered a very distinct internship opportunity where I interned at a summer camp called Wadiko. It's out in New Hampshire. We got to work with kids with serious emotional and behavioral problems where they were sent by the county and the school system to receive therapeutic treatment at the camp. And the clinical supervisor, I still remember her name. Her name is Katie. She had a very strength-based and systematic approach to helping us understand the how these behaviors came to be for these children, also get us to care for the children on a very human level. And so those experiences led me to my career path.
It's so interesting to hear how you both have not just like some very different experiences, but you also ended up in two different parts of this very broad field, specifically within the medical and healthcare system. Do you think, is there one specific experience that you could point to as maybe being the most impactful or one of the ones that shaped how you ended up in this specific place?
Oh gosh, it's hard to pinpoint to just one. I mean, I think there were some moments in my career where I really liked the hybrid approach between medicine and psychology. And one of them was, I was actually a fellow. So this was, after I completed my internship, got my PhD, and then I did a fellowship in genetics and behavioral pediatrics. And it was my first week. And I'm with the director of the genetics program. So very intimidated, scared to death, feel like I don't really know much of anything. Because the longer you go to school, I think the less you feel like you really do know. And we saw this child, about 15 months old, who had a trisomy 18, and it was a very mosaic pattern, meaning that it was not the triple chromosome of 18 was not throughout his entire body, but different parts and different organs. And part of the challenge with some of those genetic disorders is you don't know then what phenotypically it's going to look like, what limitations or manifestations may happen because of this. And a lot of kids with trisomy 18 don't live to see their first birthday. Well, this little guy did. And the family had thought that they could lose him at any point in time. And so he never had gotten put down. He would sleep with someone holding him. He was held all the time. And when everyone realized, and this was a great thing to have happen, that there was no limits, and we didn't know what his future would hold, but there's no reason to think he wouldn't see a second, third, and fourth birthday. By the way, I do get birthday or Christmas cards from them still. He's in his early 20s. The mom just started crying when the geneticist gave this diagnosis, and she said, "I'm so excited. This is answers to prayers." And she goes, "But we can't continue to live this way." And the geneticist said, gave the diagnosis, talked about, how he's going to write his own story, and let's not, put any limits on him because nobody knows. And then he said, and Dr. Elliott will help fix all of the other things with the sleep and with the behavior issues. And he walked out the door. And I was sitting there going, how do I help this family? Where do we start? And the nice thing with that I liked about having a psychology background is you've got a solid science background, and then the clinical training and things. And so it ended up being one of the most impactful cases that I ever did work on. And so that I think was a pretty pivotal moment for me of being able to, again, be kind of at an intersection between a lot of different disciplines and helping that family. So. That's the one I'd pick.
Sorry. Adding to that, working in an interdisciplinary team is also something that I enjoy a lot. And a case that came to mind was when I was at Kaiser Santa Clara Emergency Department. There was a female patient that was admitted. She was in her mid-50s. And I got through the report that she had been assaulted by her partner. And she came in with a lot of bruising, a lot of cuts, a huge black eye, I think the right eye. And so immediately it was a consult for medical social work to assess for risk. And so I went back to 5150 hold for danger to self because of how traumatic the situation was. She was a danger to herself. Yeah, and at first she didn't want to talk about the incident, but building that report, ensuring that she is safe and she's comfortable, she gradually opened up about her partner who did quite a lot of damage and was still an active one who will show up to her workplace. He is someone who has an ability that he could have showed up in the emergency. That threat, I contacted the security and also the nurse manager of her partner, also called the San Jose Police Department to file a report of the incident and also have police come to the emergency room, number one, to guarantee what happened. And that is a particularly profound case because 2 or 3 years down the road, the district attorney actually reached out to me because they were prosecuting the guy. And he had subpoenaed the notes. I had documented very clearly what had happened. And so I was called to testify in this case. And so that's an example of what kind of cases you may get to work on if you do decide to go into medical social work.
Thank you both so much. Thank you both so much. I think that hearing about these very profound cases, especially when it comes to healthcare, a lot of people end up going to hospitals, clinics, and I don't think anyone really goes to a hospital or a clinic because they want to. I don't know how else to phrase that, unless it's, for the very happy times. But hearing about how you're able to impact patients in such a positive way, I think is really nice to hear, especially as someone who wants to go into healthcare myself. And so speaking from the people who want to go into healthcare, how do you think studying psychology prepared you or benefited you going into this aspect of the healthcare force?
So I went into psychology and actually I had actually been pre-med for a couple of years, and then decided I didn't like the chemistry, and decided that I liked the science part of human behavior so much, that was more of a route I'd want to go. In the 90s, when I was an undergraduate, so quite a while ago, there wasn't many MD PhD programs around. I think I would have gravitated towards that actually now, but what really drew me to psychology was the science of human behavior and how you could help understand. And the diagnosis and the classification, that's what drew me to the clinical psych program then as well. And I think what psych did is it gave me just a very solid scientific basis to be able to look at problems, to be able to ask questions, statistics, all of that kind of in one package, in addition to the clinical environment. And that was the intersection I really liked, that I got through psychology more than I got through any other discipline at that point in time.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I would agree with Dr. Elliott that psychology helps explain an array of behavior that I observed. For example, when I volunteered at St. Joseph's Hospital, seeing how it could have such a positive outlook, even though, I don't know, I feel like I would have taken that situation completely different way. And so I feel like studying clinical psychology informs me on the symptom or cluster symptoms of things like depression or disorders like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. And that way, when I do encounter someone with those cluster of symptoms, I can kind of imagine why it is that they act a certain way. What informs me on their behavior. Also, it allows me to communicate with their family member or other interdisciplinary team
Sounds like you were cutting it out a bit towards the end, but it is still really great to hear about how psychology was able to benefit the both of you going into healthcare and how you were able to use that in a very applicable way. I definitely agree with Dr. Elliott. I don't like the chemistry either. So you're not alone in that. Again, coming as someone who is hoping to go into the healthcare field, what would you suggest for anyone that doesn't really know how to get started with maybe getting involved outside of their psychology degree?
You know, there's a lot of different backgrounds that I think could do the job I do right now. I think someone with a medical degree could be doing the job that I'm doing, as well as other types of allied health type fields. And so I think there's so many different aspects to healthcare, from, I'm very community-based, rural health, American Indian health type, roll up your sleeves field work type, some would call it shoe leather epidemiology type research. And, I think one of the pieces is just knowing that, if you just keep working on finding those jobs that are going to get you different experience, that will get you closer to things, they're going to look very different. You can have, for example, I hire individuals right out of undergraduate for clinical coordinator positions in our research lab that work in the hospital, they work in the clinics, they work in, other sorts of things. And some have a desire to go on to graduate school as well, or medical school. Some that's what they want to end up doing and stay in it for years. We also hire nurses and a whole variety of different backgrounds. And so I think if you're looking to get into medicine, just realize there are so many avenues that you can look at. And even if you can't start in what you would consider your ideal right away, just look at trying to get some experience in the healthcare field, and you'll gradually get moving to that position that you're the most interested in.
Yeah, I think some good ways to get started. Volunteering, definitely.
Mm.
If you're able to volunteer in the hospital, in nonprofit organizations. Also, there are internships. I know Kaiser, we do internships for undergrad, where you're able to shadow different providers. It could be nurse practitioners, it could be physicians, it could be therapists. And so depending on what your interest may be, and it's okay to rotate too, because in high school, I was connected to a Kaiser internship where I did get to shadow with all different types of providers throughout the clinic. They were able to talk to me about what they did. I went into their clinic appointments, saw what type of problems they were solving for patients, and that gave me an idea of what I might be interested in.
That sounds like the common theme definitely is experience, making sure you're putting yourself in these positions to see what's happening, explore the field a bit more, being able to not just like know what you want to do, but also see what other people are doing. For those that are interested, I don't know if you've looked at the HPAC website, there is a page on there for co-curricular involvement. So I did want to throw that out there in case anybody is currently looking for volunteer experience. But with that being said, circling back a bit to what you're both currently doing, is what would you say is the most enjoyable and the most difficult part of your current positions?
Well, I'll just tell you some of the things I did today, because it shows you a little bit of the variability with the day. So I'm the PI for part of it. It's called the NIH Recover Network, which is looking to define long-term COVID. There's about, I think, 60 or so sites across the United States, and we're one of them. And we actually started enrolling last week. And the purpose of it is to define long-term COVID. What does it look like? And then who's at most risk and why? And then hopefully identify then interventions that will work for it. And we're the fourth site in the country that got stood up. And so we're able to talk today about experiences we had and what that means for recruitment and where these patients are coming in through the different avenues of the health system, and things that they're experiencing by different age groups. So that was just fascinating to hear what was also happening in other parts of the country. And again, of the 30 some individuals who, are PIing the principal investigators for this study, everybody comes from a little bit different background, all different types of medicine, all different, there's a couple of other, I think a couple of other clinical psych folks, but again, we're all different backgrounds. And so everyone has a little bit slightly different bend to it. And so it's really interesting to hear getting all of those pieces put together. So that was one thing that was awfully fun I got to do today and listen to. And then this afternoon, we're looking at potentially building a new women and children's hospital and how can research get incorporated in it. Now, this was a very strategic conversation of like, what would research look like in this space? What do we want it to look like? What does that mean in terms of what space do you need? What personnel, what equipment? And that was spent 2 hours with neonatologists, our pediatricians, and a few other kind of key stakeholders and thinkers about what could this look like and what do we want it to be in 10, 20, 50 years. And so what I do enjoy about my job is I get to think sometimes at that 50-foot, 1,000-foot level of planning. What's this building going to look like? Or what's this program going to look like, all the way down to nitty gritty of how do we best recruit for a study? And so those are some of my, I like I kind of get to go between get my science bug and research nerd on with the different studies that I'm principal investigator on. And then also, but being able to think larger and strategically about that is lots of fun too, and thinking that you're helping create something that hopefully will be there in 50 years.
Yeah, so I think the toughest part of being a medical social worker probably would be barriers to access. Because depending on the person's background, depending on their coverage, there's inequity in healthcare. I'm sure you guys have talked about it in class, where social determinants of health, which is where the person grew up, who their friends are, where they went for school, where they go for work, it has huge, huge impact on what kind of care they can access, which informs their quality of life and what kind of chronic conditions they may experience. And so a lot of time, depending on the person's upbringing, their access to healthcare changes. What kind of insurance do they have? And if they don't have the best insurance, how is it that we can still provide them the equipment, the medication, the appointments to specialists, where they can, thrive and have manage their chronic conditions. And so the fragmentation of, the healthcare system, that's always a constant struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both. It's really interesting to hear not just the highs, but also the lows, because it is very much a very emotionally taxing field, or at least it can be. And so, especially with everything that's been happening with COVID and all of that, we've also heard of a lot of physicians and other people in the healthcare field experiencing a lot of burnout. So how do you deal with the many emotions that can come with working in healthcare and also kind of make sure that you're taking care of you?
Oh gosh. I'd like to say I had it all together and that I had this great plan for doing this. But I think like many of us, we feel we've been running so much these last couple of years and my team, the research institute that I lead, we've got about 80 some people in it. We all were considered essential workers. And so didn't, worked throughout and standing up clinical trials. There was no treatment interventions, standing those up inpatient, outpatient, as well as trying to help on the population level. We helped the state with different statistics as well. And you just feel like you've been running for the last couple of years. And also just seeing our colleagues that are working like in nursing field and physicians that are working, right in the patients with the care. I mean, we're involved from a research point of view, but it's not quite the same as it's not the same as all as individuals who, are on the 24/7 of taking care of people. And you get tired. You get tired. And my husband and I, we finally went on a vacation this last year. And I tell you, that was just a godsend. And so you find those little pockets of where you can do things to help fill up your bucket. And I think there's a lot of us that have a bit of a deficit in that we've got to really work on. But it's a day-to-day making sure that you are making those decisions. And I'm not sure anyone's really got it down. If they seem like it, they might not be showing you the struggles when they are having them. And so I do think it's important for people to realize that nobody's really got it all figured out. And that it's just, you figure out what works for you. And some days it works better than others. And you just have to shake off the bad days and go to the next. But I do see a fatigue that exists right now in healthcare, as well as just society on a lot of these things. So I think we need to keep looking for ways to lift each other up, take care of each other. And that usually starts with helping take care of yourself first.
Yeah, Dr. Elliott made a lot of great points about self-care. I want to say that I was pretty lucky when I went to school at Berkeley that the program put together a support group. So for the incoming first year, there was a sign-up sheet where they put you in these teams where you were expected to support each other, show up to get lunch at least once a week, talk about how tough classes are, talk about internship issues, maybe issues with professors, so on and so forth. And I was very lucky that I got into a group that we've stuck around. We met each other in 2012, And to this day, we still text each other every day. We meet up once a month at least, where we catch up on each other's lives, but also we get to talk about particularly challenging cases and also system issues that we encounter in, mental health field, in the hospital system. And so it's very important to start right now, maybe even in undergrad, to have that support group so that you're comfortable, sharing the difficulty, so that when you have a really tough day, you do have an outlet. You can process with someone who understands your situation, because if your partner or if your friends are not also in the psychology or the healthcare field, they might not be able to connect on that level. And also, I'm also very lucky that the Kaiser team that I currently work with, we're also very close, where if we have a very, very challenging case, we're able to meet in person and talk about, what's going on, and also share our personal struggles. Because as providers, we do have feelings about what is happening, especially when we witness pain and suffering. And sometimes we may internalize that. So it's great to have an outlet to be able to process that, in addition to taking vacation and having hobbies outside of work, like Dr. Elliott said.
I like how you both mentioned things that are working, especially for you, making sure you have a support network together, you're communicating with those around you. And a follow-up question we did receive in the chat is, how do you practice self-care currently, now that things are kind of transitioning, quote unquote, back to normal? Do you have any fun activities that you recommend to the many students that may or may not need to be practicing self-care right now?
I have to tell you, I'm one of the worst offenders on this part. I do think I love what I do, and I work an exorbitant number of hours. And that's a lot by my choice, because I do really enjoy what I do. What I like right now is I'm able to travel again, which is something I really enjoy. Like even next week, I'm going to DC for work for 3 days for an in-person conference. I'm so excited. And so it's nice to have things open up like that, that I can see and do again. Our daughter lives in New York City. And again, with New York opening up more and more, we're able to kind of get back and see. So I feel like just getting back to some of that normal for me has been a big part of that. We also have dogs who will keep you busy and get you up at 5 a.m. when you may not want to get up. So, keeping that regular schedule, doing all of those different pieces, taking time on the weekends to cook, spend time with my husband, and, just normal. It feels really good right now.
Yeah, so some of the self-care stuff that I do is similar. Going to new places, traveling, because it gets you out of that norm. Getting outside of the norm. Exercising is another big one that I do. Playing basketball, going hiking, also meeting up with friends, whether it's work friends or friends from grad school, and maintaining that relationship with them, because the support, I do feel that it goes both ways. And so having all of this kind of supports me and prevents burnout, I would say.
I'll be definitely taking your all strategies to heart, especially just to plug our recent implement and share self-care activity points in case anyone does want to try out any of these activities. I'm not going to say that you should travel during final season, but no, just kidding. Please don't travel during final season. Make sure you're doing your finals.
And you know what? I haven't been in college for, 25 years.
It looks like you're actually muted. Dr. Elliott, 1 second. You may need to restart.
I was just going to say, I haven't been in college for 25 years, but hearing about finals still causes me anxiety. So, part of it is just getting through it. But I loved how you guys are helping support each other through that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those things you kind of have to keep up with, especially as a psychology org. But one question that we did get in the chat as well is, what are some notable unforeseen challenges that you encountered in your career/education? And how did the tools from your undergrad and the programs you've been a part of provided you with help to confront them. I phrased that a bit weird. Please take a moment. I can repeat it if it's helpful.
School for me just kept getting better. College was better than high school. Graduate school was better than college or than undergraduate. My doctorate program was better than my master's program. And fellowship was better than all of it. And so each of them kind of built on one another. I do think that undergraduate helped lay a solid foundation for me that I was able to build upon from a knowledge point of view. And so that was very helpful. I truly meant it, that I think sometimes as you go on, you think you know less and less because you see all of the holes and the gaps in what we just know in general. And it's very humbling a lot of times with those sorts of things. So I do think that it just laid that foundation, but realizing that in undergraduate, I think I learned a lot of theory, a lot of facts, a lot of, learned how to write a little bit. That's probably one of the best things my undergraduate did is my program, we had to write a lot. And so writing's one of those things you get better the more you do it. And I just felt like it gave me a solid foundation because then my master's degree helped kind of contribute to that knowledge. But really by the time I was in my doctorate, it started to change how I think and how I approach problems and the tools that I have to be able to apply to any situation. Because I can tell you, no two cases of anything look the same. People are very, very different. I work now mostly in my own research in prenatal exposures and its effect on child development. And I can tell you, no two kids look the same, even with the same exposure, because it was on a different day. Brains develop differently, genetics influence, all these other pieces of it. And so you start to it changes how you start to think about it, but you need that solid foundation in which to build those other things. So I think where undergraduate really just helped with the challenge of, as I went on in school, like I said, I felt like I had some good tools to be able to use, and writing. The ability to write is a gift.
When I first heard that question, I was a little stumped because I had to look back 20 years ago when I was an undergrad, and that's a long time. That's a long, long time. And so from what I remember from undergrad was being able to take a lot of classes and getting to sample, different classes in psychology, different classes, biology, and then kind of finding out what I'm interested in and what I'm good at. And so I took an abnormal psychology class. The professor was phenomenal. He was able to provide case vignettes of different types of, mental illness. I had a lot of interest in it, a lot of interest in it. Didn't get an A in the class, but I enjoyed studying that. So I think based on that experience, I knew this is a direction I wanted to go in. I wanted to work with direct patient care, and these are the problems and issues I want to be thinking about. And so that's how it led me to doing a master's in social welfare at Berkeley. And I would agree with Dr. Elliott that in undergrad, if you had classes that reinforced your communication skills, it's so key. Yeah, whether you do research, whether you work in a hospital or clinic setting, you will be communicating with other providers. You will be communicating with family members, people outside of the organization, and being able to communicate in a succinct way is so key. Yeah.
Thank you both so much. And another question we did receive in chat as you both were explaining is, if you weren't in your current field/profession, what other field would you be pursuing and why?
I was always one of those people who I liked lots of things. I think I could have ended up in lots of different careers and felt very fulfilled as long as I felt like I was contributing to society and making a difference in the world. So if it wasn't psychology or medicine, I think I would have liked to have been an architect. I find that whole process just fascinating, which would be completely different. My husband's a physician, and he swears that his high school guidance counselor did him a disservice because it steered him away from meteorology. And so he's a pediatrician and now administrator in the health system. And so I do think it's kind of funny that when you think about that question, the various, and it could have been a different class and the maybe sometimes even the smallest decisions that kind of can help steer you in a different direction. But yeah, I was always one of those people who liked all kinds of different fields. So I think I could have done a lot of things and felt pretty fulfilled.
Yeah, so unlike Dr. Elliott, I don't think I can excel in a lot of different things. And I feel like if I weren't doing what I was doing right now, maybe business, because I do feel like I am able to understand people's needs and what they want, which goes into a little bit of sales, using a little bit of that motivational interviewing technique to get the person to want what you're selling. So maybe business would be the field I go into.
Great. Now as we do wind down into our last few minutes, I believe we have time for one or two last questions. Doing an initial scan of the room. Any questions come up in person? If not, that's okay. I'll also look at the chat. But anyways, one question that did come up is, what are some experiences that you gathered during your undergraduate and graduate career that you believe contributed to your proficiency in both your current work and your graduate studies?
So early on, I got a couple of pieces of advice, and one didn't happen until after I graduated, but I think that it fits no matter what you are. And one, it was bloom where you're planted. Okay, I'm from South Dakota. Never thought I would be coming back here. I turned down a faculty position at Hopkins. We had a 3-year-old at the time, and the pull of home was getting pretty strong. And I thought, oh, I'm giving something up on the career front. And if my mentor at the time told me, he said, bloom where you're planted. Look at what the needs are around you. Look at what the opportunities are around you, rather than thinking about, well, what if I moved my family to Baltimore? What if I had taken that job? Look at what the opportunities are around you, and then use those opportunities around you to make the most you can out of it. And I think that for me was huge. When I looked around, I saw opportunities in American Indian Health. I saw opportunities in different prenatal exposures that really led to my career path. And so, no matter what decisions you make or what forks in the road you may take, looking at what are the opportunities you have available to you where you're at now, I think is really critical. So now fast forward 20 plus years, and I have a much more high powered career actually than I probably would have if it'd be nice to be introduced to be, Ivy League professor. But at the same time, I run an entire institute. Whereas at Hopkins, I'd probably be starting to get on interesting committees by now. And so, it's interesting to see how those turns can take you. The other piece is, someone told me this during undergraduate, that all decisions you make in your professional life are only related to 3 things. And so when you're struggling with making a decision, you just need to think about what your priority is in these 3 areas. One is the type of job or the type of training program. Okay. And this helps guide any decision that you're going to make. And it's held true so many times, I can't tell you. The type of program, the type of job, the location of it, and the money. And depending on what your priority is, will help guide what your decision is. If your number one priority is the type of job or the academic program, for example, then it doesn't matter where it's located, if that's your number one. Okay. If your number one is location, then look around the location you want to be. Don't torture yourself by looking at things in locations that you have no intention of ever going to. Look around where your opportunities are. Again, bloom where you're planted. And then the third is money. which can make a huge difference if you're going to go to school and it's going to be help paid for, or it's going to be something that's going to put you $200,000, $300,000 in debt, which can happen so easy. And so by knowing your priority on those three things, it can really help guide you into the decision. It helped me make that decision. Do I go to Hopkins or do I move back to South Dakota? Because I decided at that point in time, I never would have thought I would have picked location as my number one. But at that point in time, we had a young daughter, family was here, the pull of home got awfully strong. You're really lucky if you have two of those things on your priority list. I have all three and am very, very blessed. And so those three things I think have helped guide me to all of those different pieces of it. So sorry, I went off on a little tangent there, but it truly is advice that I've used numerous times.
Yeah, I would say that those are excellent points about making a decision on picking the location of grad school, and also that will lead to where your career is, because it's like planting the seed. The location of where you're going to go. If it's a master's program, it could be 2-3 years. If it's a PhD program, you're stuck there for 5, maybe 7, 8 years. Yeah, if you consider the weather, the people around there, do you have friends in that area? You're going to be in that area for a while, and also the connections will be there. So when I chose Berkeley for my graduate program, I thought, yes, I'm going to stay in the Bay Area, so I do want an institution that has very strong connections with all the top hospital systems, clinics in this area, because after I graduate, that could lead to job opportunities. And I would also just say that if you do have the opportunity to sit in on classes, it's a great way to meet current students where you can talk to them and get a sense of how they feel about their program. They may be able to give you advice on application. They may give you inside information on professors or classes you should take. And that would inform your decision and give you more confidence in picking that graduate program.
You both so much. It does look like we are in our last couple minutes, so I will ask just one final question of you. If the audience members today could only take one thing away from our meeting, then what would it be? What advice would you leave them with?
Sometimes it feels, I think, especially when you're an undergraduate, and as you go through, it seems like every decision you have to make is going to set the course for the rest of your career. And I think one thing I would want people just to think about anyway is that no matter what decisions you make, even if you wish you would have made a different one a while back, you will make the most out of it by by applying yourself fully. And it very well could be that the decisions you make you could end up at the exact same place, even if you choose this path or this path or this path, because it's what you're going to make out of it. And so no matter what your circumstance is, because some people have more options than others, and some, are in different life spaces than others. No matter what choices that you have to make or what your field looks like, just make the most out of each and every one and use that to help be as a springboard to advance your knowledge, advance your skills, advance your leadership ability. And the sky's the limit of where you can end up going. And so sometimes it's not as much about the decision as it is about what you're going to bring once you made it.
Yeah, and I would also say that it's okay to try a whole slew of things. You don't have to feel like you got to make the right decision and stick to one thing. When I first graduated from Berkeley, I started working at the Veterans Affairs. The director of social work, he also graduated from Berkeley. He met with me one-on-one because I wanted to get an understanding of, am I doing what I really want to do? Am I passionate about this? Am I going to stick around and do this for, decades and decades? And the advice he gave me was, it's okay to try out different departments, because he told me, when he first graduated, he worked in medical social work, then he went into psychiatry, then he did case management, and all those different experiences, he built skills from each one of those places where it allowed him to be director of social work at the highest level. And so it's okay to pursue multiple things and get stuff out of it, and that will inform your path in the future.
On that wonderful note, I want to thank you both so much for coming to our general meeting today and for speaking about your careers and your journeys and getting where you are. We are going to end our panel here. And so again, thank you to everyone that submitted questions. Thank you for coming to speak. We do have a last minute announcement for the inductions committee and then our social coming up. So I will pass it off to whoever's going to be making that announcement. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys. Nice to virtually meet you all.
It was a pleasure being able to talk to you guys. Thank you.